So I would say that one of the first things is to develop the ability to ask a question. If you develop the ability to ask a question, even if it's stupid, you're in the dialogue, right? And frankly, there are no stupid questions. So once you're starting to ask questions, you become accustomed to that. And I don't mean running off all the time, but any old thing, but to try to find something that's relevant to you with what you're doing now. Once you do that, then the question becomes not just a question, but it becomes more important, and therefore it becomes the right question. You follow me? It gets to a point where it becomes the right question because it's directly related to what you're working with there. So the development of the question can get more and more significant. You can sharpen it like a tool. Questioning is extremely important. Now, that comes hand in hand with something else, which is attention. So we were talking, and I was talking in my class yesterday, Tom was there, about the importance of attention. The question came up with, well, how long does it take to learn a thing? And I was saying that it's not really about time, it's about intent. And how do you get to intent? Well, you need to start with the question, and then you need the ability to stay with it, which means attention. So if we can develop some attention, and you'll see that it flags, it goes. By the way, first stage, when I talk about 3 stages, first stage is about fixing your intent. In other words, you're working with something, you're feeling it out, you're trying to find the story. You're really actively trying to use as few lines as possible to say as clearly as you can what it is that you're trying to fathom, what you're trying to get to, right? And when you arrive at something and you can say yes to it, then you move into stage 2 and you begin to develop it. So I would say ordinarily that when you reach that point at which you know that what you've got is what you want to develop, then cognize that, make that your statement of intent, plant a flag there. And when you do that, you carry that intent with you into the other stages so that you don't get lost in the process. It's very easy to get lost in the process. You get attracted to one thing or another thing, and then before you know it, you've lost the relationship to the big picture. And as I was saying, this can happen not just as an artist with drawing, but it can happen when you're developing a story. You're a writer, or you're a filmmaker, or you're a dancer, or you're a sculptor. Imagine being a sculptor and losing your way, right? If you're carving, for instance. I think that happened to someone that was carving this big block of beautiful white marble in Florence a few years back, or a few hundred years back. And he abandoned it because he got scared. And so it was a big, beautiful piece. And so they put it up, they put it up for a contest to see who could come up with the best idea for that block. And Michelangelo was a young man at that time, and he put his bid in, and they gave it to him, and he created the David, right? So it's this ability to work with the problems and staying on track that's so important. And that comes back to asking the right question to get you in the ballpark, and then having the attention to stay, to not lose the big picture while you're working with the detail. When you can do that, that intent is so strong that it's unusual intent. Not everybody can hold that kind of intent. And I refer to it as shamanic intent because it takes this special quality. And the analogy I gave yesterday was one of a welder. Does anyone here weld? Do any welding? No? Probably not. But if you were a sculptor, you might do some welding. It's possible. But working with welders and having done it a little bit myself and been taught the process a little bit, what I come to find out is they've got this kind of inner language about when things work and when they don't work. And one of them is this quality of attention that's necessary for making a good weld. And what they call a good weld is when all your beads look alike. And those beads are, every time you lay down that torch, you create this this kind of running strand of beads, is what they call them. And when another welder looks at someone else's work, they can tell by the way those beads look whether they lost their attention or not. Right? We don't have that. Another way is that we don't have that. You could look at a skier, for instance. If you're a skier and you're learning to ski and you're going downhill, there's no place for wandering, because if you do, or if you get a little too high on your own stuff, you could make a serious mistake going that speed. And the reminder is you crash, right? You're going to take a crash. You're going to spill. We don't have that kind of a reminder. The reminder we need has to be much subtler. So where will that come from? And I think if you just keep coming back to the question, are you addressing the question, is your attention sticking? Now you might say, oh, there's something I need to go into. Well, when you go into it, remember to not lose the big picture as you're doing it, so that you can come back to it, right? When you lose the big picture, you've lost your way and you're just kind of working your way through the labyrinth. That can be fun, granted, but you don't know what the outcome is going to be. When there's a lot of money concerned, and you can think about money in a lot of different ways, it's important that you stay on track and not lose yourself in the process. So intent then becomes like an arrow. It becomes very straight and it's connected to its target. It's almost as if it knows the target intimately, if it's already there, as opposed to kind of come see, come saw intent. Well, I sort of wanted to go there, but I went off and did this thing and that was good. It's not the same as being able to stay on track and go directly to where you intend to go. So the way to develop that is by working with questions, for instance. And then once you've established something that's important to you, to stay with it. So the 3 stages are set up so that when you do the gesture part, that allows you at that point to say yes or not quite to whatever your endeavor is. If you reach a yes, you plant the intent right there, and then you carry it. Now, this is not something that's easy. You're going to lose it. But the whole point is to develop the ability to do it. So it's not like something that you're going to have a talent for, and therefore it's all going to be okay. You're going to have to develop this. And if you do, it'll give you strength in drawing like nothing else. And your learning process won't have to do with time. It won't have to do with mileage. It'll have to do with intent, right? And what you bring, how much intent you bring to every endeavor that you get into, all right? It's a little different than saying you need to do 10,000 hours and then you'll become masterful, right? It has nothing to do with that. And by the way, that has nothing to do with the truth. 10,000 hours, right? Okay.